Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating literary movement from 1970s San Francisco, the New Narrative,
Right.
founded by Robert Glück and Bruce Boon. And this wasn't just, honest subjective experience. It was pretty radical, trying to capture the lived physical body, all of it, the sex and gossip and political debate. I think sort of fragmented prose, mixing autobiography, fiction.
And really focusing on the details, the micro details of queer life in the city back then.
Exactly. And our mission today in this deep dive is to really explore how the devastating AIDS crisis just violently crashed into these principles.
Yeah, it forced a huge, multifaceted shift in the movement's whole identity, its literary purpose, really.
The initial impact was just immediate and shattering. We're calling this first part biographical annihilation.
A strong term.
Speaks to the human cost, right?
Yeah.
Creating this life of gaping holes where departed friends and colleagues ought to be, to silence where voices should have been.
Absolutely. And you see that tragically with SamDAlessandro. He was a key figure. His goal, he said, was to write about the body, about desire, about the way we live and die and love.
And then his own life became that thesis.
Precisely. He died of AIDS complications in '88, only 31. And what's important is how this forced a kind of rewiring of language for everyone. It wasn't just exploration anymore.
It became urgent documentation.
Existential documentation, almost.
And that huge loss, it turned the act of writing itself into a form of active memorialization.
Right.
Like Robert Gluck's About Ed. He worked on that novel for his lover, Ed Ulrich Shugai, for, over 2 decades?
Yeah, a long time. It's described as a tomb built in language.
Wow.
It really shows how they started using maybe fragmentation and this intense intimacy.
To make the hauntings of that illness the very substance of text.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Which brings us neatly to the next part, this formal and aesthetic disruption. A crisis of language. Because the urgency, the sheer scale of the epidemic, it just shattered any need for coded language, the kind you sometimes saw in earlier queer writing.
So, no more hiding or being subtle.
No time for it. It demanded, aggressive and direct speech, just to try and document lives that were vanishing so fast.
So it changed how they wrote, not just what they wrote about.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious break from maybe earlier new narrative styles?
Oh, absolutely. And it created a real tension. You had activist groups, understandably, calling for this greater narrative of mass suffering, like a unified voice.
Right, for political impact.
But then you had writers like, say, Dennis Cooper, who felt the losses so intensely personally. It wasn't just collective for everyone in the same way.
That's a really interesting point. The individual versus the collective trauma, even within the same group.
And out of that very raw, visceral feeling came this new poetics. Kevin Killian and Dodie Bellamy had that stark line.
The poetry was in the gore.
Exactly. And that wasn't just for shock value. It was pushing back against abstraction, you know?
Forcing you to confront the reality.
Forcing an intimacy with the suffering, the brutal truth of it, in a way that maybe traditional elegy couldn't or wouldn't.
So ultimately, all these losses, this disruption, it forged this legacy of survival. Writing as resistance.
Preservation, yeah. Fighting that deep fear of just vanishing, being dead, and not remembered.
That must have been overwhelming.
It connects right back to that activist chant, silence equals death. But here, it took on a new literary weight.
How so?
It wasn't just political. It became this desperate plea within the writing itself. You see it in lines like, I'll be somewhere listening for my name.
Wow. That's haunting. It's not just hoping to be remembered, it's demanding it.
A demand for presence, yeah, even after death.
And, it's striking how fragile this history still feels. You mentioned the SamDAlessandro virtual reading room website.
Right, intended as this online memorial space.
But it's still listed as in creation. Often you can't even access it.
It's kind of a modern metaphor, isn't it, for how unfinished the work of documenting this whole period still is. Painfully unfinished.
So, wrapping this up, what does it all mean? The AIDS crisis didn't just touch the new narrative movement. It fundamentally reforged it. It shifted from maybe a celebration of queer life
to something much more raw, a literature of defiance, of survival, and absolutely of remembrance.
Yeah.
And, this leaves us with a pretty important question, something for you, our listener, to think about, given how hard it still is to preserve these histories.
These fragile stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do we, all of us, make sure that these profound stories, and crucially, the names of those who were lost, actually resonate beyond the silence? How do we ensure they truly endure for the future?
Thanks for listening. For more Queer Trip podcasts, visit the Queer Triptych at www.queertriptych.weebly.com. Have a great day and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.